Michael Collins holds a revered place in Irish history as a pivotal figure who played a defining role in the country's quest for independence. Collins' significance lies in his strategic brilliance and unwavering dedication to the cause of Irish freedom. At one point, he was the most wanted man in Ireland and one of the most wanted men in the British Empire, with a bounty of nearly $730,000 in today's money on his head. As Director of Intelligence for the Irish Republican Army, IRA, he orchestrated a network of intelligence and counterintelligence operations that weakened British control throughout Ireland. His expertise in guerrilla warfare and his adept use of hit-and-run tactics undermined the British military's efforts, hastening negotiations for peace. In his short lifetime, he had fought the British Empire to a stalemate, negotiated the first Treaty of Independence for Ireland, and overseen its transition to a democracy. Collins was born near Roscarbery in County Cork in 1890. He attended school and then worked as a local journalist, writing sports reviews before moving to London at the age of 15 to work for the Gaelic Athletic Association, GAA. In London, Collins immersed himself in the Irish community, gaining an acute understanding of Irish nationalism's historical underpinnings. He went on to join the Irish Republican Brotherhood, a secret oath-bound organization dedicated to the establishment of an independent democratic Irish republic. By 1915, he had ascended the ranks within the IRB's London branch, all while recognizing the escalating tensions among Dublin's Republican factions. Sensing the need for preparation before any uprising, Collins returned home, actively participating in recruitment efforts. Despite the improbable odds, the 1916 Easter Rising unfolded. Initially intended as a nationwide uprising, the rebellion's scope abruptly shifted in its final moments, narrowing its focus exclusively to Dublin, resulting in significant destruction of the capital and the execution of 7 revolt leaders. This misjudgment proved pivotal, shifting public sentiment in favor of the insurgents. Collins, along with De Valera and other leaders, recognized the nation's growing support for an Irish republic. Subsequently imprisoned in the Frongoch internment camp, Collins further showcased his leadership, earning recognition from fellow captives. Upon release, he swiftly ascended within Sinn Féin and the IRB, spearheading a guerrilla war against British forces. Collins' remarkable journey from a journalist in Cork to a leading force in Ireland's fight for independence underscored his strategic acumen and enduring commitment to the cause. In December of 1918, amidst a context where a majority of elected Sinn Féin members were incarcerated, Michael Collins emerged as a significant figure among the 27 present when the Dáil Éireann Irish Assembly convened in Dublin. This assembly resolutely declared the establishment of the Republic. Notably, the elected president, Eamon de Valera, and vice president Arthur Griffith were both detained. Consequently, much of the responsibility naturally fell onto Collins, who initially assumed the role of the Dáil's Minister of Home Affairs. His subsequent orchestrations included engineering de Valera's escape from Lincoln Jail in February 1919. He also organized a mass escape of about 20 prisoners from Mountjoy Prison. Later, he rose to the position of Minister of Finance. Yet it was in his capacity as the Director of Intelligence for the Irish Republican Army, IRA, that Collins truly came into the limelight. He had spies and informers everywhere, including the police, the British Army, and even in Dublin Castle, which was where the British Administrative Centre was in Ireland. His spies allowed him to intercept British messages, and there were numerous occasions where Collins had copies of British orders before they reached the intended recipient. As the chief architect and coordinator of the revolutionary movement, Collins masterminded a multitude of attacks on law enforcement agencies and orchestrated the assassination of several key intelligence operatives for Britain in Ireland, a significant event in November 1920. Despite the presence of conventional British military units on Irish soil during that era, the British administration predominantly relied upon the Royal Irish Constabulary, RIC, and the Dublin Metropolitan Police, DMP, to exercise governance over the land. The RIC, operating as a paramilitary contingent, was strategically positioned within barracks, equipped with rifles, and extended its influence through an extensive network of informants and spies that permeated every hamlet and municipality across Ireland. Intriguingly, it's noteworthy that the RIC's ranks were predominantly comprised of individuals belonging to the Irish Catholic community. Under the cover of night on April 7, 1919, Collins, aided by one of his covert operatives, clandestinely entered the precincts of G Division headquarters. Throughout a night locked in the castle's file room, he meticulously examined classified documents of utmost sensitivity. Upon perusal, Collins arrived at a pivotal realization. The linchpin to undermine Britain's dominion lay in dismantling its intricate intelligence network. He astutely noted that while England could readily replenish its fallen soldiers, its vulnerability lay in the irreplaceable void left by the absence of spies. The shroud of secrecy was a shield that could not be easily restored. Furthermore, Collins discerned that the recruitment of substitute spies proved to be an arduous undertaking, compounded by the challenge of replicating the breadth of knowledge possessed by their fallen counterparts. Armed with this strategic insight, Collins embarked on a deliberate and methodical campaign, orchestrating an unrelenting assault on both the Royal Irish Constabulary, RIC, and the formidable G Division. In opposition to the RIC, Collins employed the IRA flying columns, compact yet remarkably agile bands of guerrilla fighters, often numbering around 30 individuals and equipped with limited weaponry. On April 20, 1919, the IRA executed its inaugural assault on an RIC barracks, successfully capturing rifles and ammunition. Over the subsequent months, the IRA escalated its campaign against the RIC, prompting the closure of several smaller RIC barracks and the reassignment of troops to more sizable installations in urban and municipal centers. In July 1919, Collins orchestrated the formation of a compact team of youthful volunteers, specifically designated under the IRA's intelligence department and referred to as the Squad. Their primary objective was to eliminate detectives and other British informants linked with G Division. The Squad typically issued preemptive advisories to potential targets, offering them a chance to temper their activities. Those who heeded the warning by demonstrating decreased involvement were spared. However, those who disregarded the warning often met a fatal fate. The inaugural target of the Squad was Sergeant Patrick Smith, whose persistent negligence of multiple warnings culminated in his demise on July 30, 1919. In response to this, the British became even harsher by deploying the Black and Tans, referring to their black and khaki uniforms. However, their mistreatment of the Irish population had the opposite effect and rallied more people in support of the IRA. One of the things that caused the British to fear Collins the most was the relentlessness and success with which he tracked down his enemies. For example, when the Irish were being rounded up at the end of the Easter Rebellion, Collins saw one of the British officers, Lee Wilson, mistreating several of the prisoners, including its eldest leader, 58-year-old Thomas Clark. Collins remembered the incident and swore to avenge it. In June 1920, more than 4 years after the Rising, Collins learned that Wilson was working as an RIC district inspector in Gorey, a small town in County Wexford. Collins then dispatched assassins to kill Wilson. The single most devastating attack on the British occurred on November 21, 1920. Late in the year, the British sent numerous Secret Service agents to Dublin in an attempt to infiltrate the IRA High Command and to kill or capture Collins. These operatives gained recognition as the Cairo Gang due to their prior service in Cairo, Egypt. Another tale suggests that their moniker stemmed from their frequenting of the Cairo Cafe in Dublin. Utilizing his own extensive intelligence network, Collins became privy to the conspiracy and successfully unmasked numerous agents. With their identities unveiled, Collins swiftly executed a preemptive maneuver. On the early morning of Sunday, November 21st, the Squad orchestrated a synchronized assault across Dublin, resulting in the elimination of at least 13 and potentially up to 20 British informants or soldiers, depending on various accounts. Among those who participated in these operations was Sean Lemass, who would later ascend to the position of Prime Minister of Ireland. As a reprisal, the British authorities proceeded to the Croke Park Gaelic football match in Dublin later that day, where they opened fire into the assembled crowd, resulting in the tragic deaths of 13 spectators and 1 player. These events would eternally etch the name Bloody Sunday into the annals of Irish history. Collins would subsequently pen his thoughts on the matter, stating, "For myself, my conscience is clear. There is no crime in detecting and destroying. In wartime, the spy and the informer. They have destroyed without trial. I have paid them back in their own coin." Notably, his name was prominently featured on the British wanted list, warranting a substantial bounty of £10,000, nearly $730,000 in today's money for his capture. Part of his success, however, came from his sheer audacity. There were numerous times that he approached the British at checkpoints and asked what was going on. Although he was the most wanted man in Ireland, he never wore a disguise. Rather, he dressed as a businessman, wearing a suit and tie as he rode his bicycle throughout Dublin, opting to hide in plain sight. Also, he was supported by his vast network of spies, and also the majority of the Irish people supported him. The minority that did not knew that had they turned him in, they would not live long enough to spend the reward. His unyielding commitment to the cause, coupled with his strategic strategic brilliance swiftly propelled Collins to fame and infamy alike, making him a central figure in the struggle for Irish independence. After a few years of war, most of the RIC and British Army were confined to Dublin, as it was too dangerous to operate outside it. It also soon became apparent to the British that they were losing the war, and the British called for a ceasefire. Tasked with leading the Irish delegation in London were Collins and Arthur Griffith. Among the British negotiators were David Lloyd George and Winston Churchill. Collins strongly objected to being sent as a delegate, feeling that, as a soldier who had fought the war, it was not his position to negotiate the terms of any treaty. Nonetheless, he helped in negotiating a treaty. Although it did not provide for a complete and free Irish republic, it did create the 26-county Irish Free State, which had dominion status, leaving the 6 counties of Northern Ireland as part of Great Britain. In a letter dated the 6th of September 1921, composed shortly after the treaty's signing, his words proved eerily prophetic. "Think what I have got for Ireland. Something which she wanted these past 700 years. Will anyone be satisfied at the bargain? Will anyone? I tell you this, early this morning I signed my death warrant." The outcome was a bitter civil war, an agonizing twist where former compatriots, once united against the British, found themselves at odds, unleashing a ferocity at times mirroring the very excesses of the British Empire. Brothers and sisters in arms turned against each other in a heartbreaking display of internal conflict. The Civil War drew to a close in 1923, and subsequently, the Irish Free State endeavoured to establish its presence on the global stage, and formal declaration of Irish independence occurred in 1948. During the war, Collins was appointed Commander-in-Chief of the National Army. In August 1923, Collins embarked from Dublin to conduct an inspection in Cork and rumoured to be meeting with rebel leaders to bring about an end to the Civil War. On a tour of Western County Cork at approximately 7:30 p.m, his modest convoy entered a small valley known as Beal-na-Blaw, situated merely 15 miles from his birthplace. A group of IRA operatives, aware of Collins' presence in the vicinity, had set up an ambush. Gunfire erupted from the hillside, and in the brief exchange of gunfire that followed, Collins met his untimely demise. The ultimate irony lay in the fact that the man who had honed guerrilla warfare tactics and had eluded death countless times at the hand of the British met his end in a guerrilla ambush orchestrated by his former comrades in his very own home county. Collins was just 31 when he died, and did so trying to take the guns out of Irish politics. His body lay in state for 3 days, where tens of thousands came to pay their respects. This even included British soldiers he had fought against. Some 500,000 people attended his funeral, almost 1/5 of the country's population at the time. In a poll conducted by the Irish Times as part of the Millennium celebration, Collins was voted the Republic's Man of the Century. Even today, Collins remains the most controversial and polarizing figure in Irish history.